The Veterans Yoga Project involves a team of yoga teachers with a mission to support recovery and resilience for veterans through the practice of yoga. The organization promotes the improved well-being of veterans suffering from post-traumatic stress disorders by using yoga as a method to undo the nervous system dysfunction that underlies PTSD symptoms.
For people who are dealing with post-traumatic stress, for veterans who are dealing with these very significant symptoms, these simple tools are more than just, oh, they help me relax, right? They're more than just, oh, I'm able to focus a little more clearly. I mean, these are life-saving for many of the veterans we work with. The statistics out there vary, but you know, it's pretty well documented. There are over 2 million American veterans who are dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder, many more dealing with traumatic brain injury, depression. And the research and our experience bears out that these tools help significantly. And I can't tell you how many veterans tell me yoga saved my life. And as a clinical psychologist, I always say, yoga is not a cure for PTSD, and you want to work with mental health providers because you really do. But I can't tell you how many dozens and dozens of veterans I've said that yoga saved my life, right? Mindfulness, meditation saved my life. And so the Veterans Yoga Project grew out of the Feathered Pipe Foundation. They were our first fiscal sponsor before we were our own 501c3 nonprofit, because they, as much as they incubated me as an individual, they incubated this organization.
The Feathered Pipe Ranch recently hosted a workshop for yoga instructors. Teachers from around the nation gathered in Montana to learn, share, and gain experience in the methods of providing yoga to veterans in particular. The topics included compassion fatigue, PTSD, and the 5 tools of mindful resilience, which are breath, meditation, mindful movement, guided rest, and gratitude.
And this work started because we were working with veterans, and many of you are working with veterans who are dealing with significant symptoms of post-traumatic stress. In addition to traumatic brain injury and depression and substance abuse and all the other things that we talk about and that we know that the men and women that we work with are dealing with. And when we're teaching yoga to somebody who is recovering from trauma, there are very specific best practices that we need to engage in order to create the space for healing to occur. And really that's what we do, right? As yoga instructors, our job is to hold the space and share the practice. And that's not as easy as it sounds, right? We all have the tools, we can share the tools. We know different breathing practices that work. We know different meditation practices that veterans find helpful. We know different movement practices, different resting practices, different gratitude practices. But that's what it is, because that's amazing, right? Those are the practices that create inner space, right? So if we remember, and I'm going to take us back, right? What is post-traumatic stress, right? It's something that happens after a trauma. What's a trauma, right? A traumatic event is well, you tell me, what are the 3 things that characterize a traumatic event? There's a lack of safety, right? It's life-threatening. There's a definite threat there, so there's a lack of safety. What else? Lack of control and lack of predictability, right? And so we call this space safety, predictability, and control, or a safe, predictable, and controllable environment, SPACE. So at the time of the trauma, my body and mind, my whole sense of self is lacking safety, lacking predictability, and lacking control. When I had a veteran tell me that, and he didn't say it in these words, but it didn't feel very safe, predictable, or controllable when I projectile vomited the first time I had to pick up a body part. Right? All of a sudden, my body was doing things that I didn't want it to do. It certainly didn't feel safe. I couldn't predict that this was going to happen, and I couldn't control it. Believe me, I tried. Right? Or I was shaking uncontrollably, and I just couldn't, or I froze. Right? There was all these reactions that happen at the time of the trauma, right? Which are just natural human reactions. But they can be characterized as lacking safety, predictability, and control in my own mind and my own body, right? At the time of the trauma, my body didn't do what I thought it would do, or I couldn't control it. My mind didn't do what I thought it would do, or what I wanted it to do. And so that's the traumatic event, right? That's that lack of space. And for many of the veterans that we work with, right, they undergo these traumatic events, and that sense of a lack of space persists, right? And we can talk about the 4 symptom clusters of post-traumatic stress, but really, if you think about the experience of somebody who's going through post-traumatic stress, there continues to be a lack of a safe, predictable, and controllable environment. Some of that is the external environment, right? So we all know sort of, right, many people with post-traumatic stress, if they're in a crowded place, well, they might not go into a crowded place in the first place because it feels unsafe and unpredictable and controllable. Or if they do go to a restaurant, they're going to have their back to the wall and their eyes on the door. They are going to pay attention to the exits, maybe more than somebody who's not dealing with post-traumatic stress. The external world continues to feel unsafe. It continues to feel unpredictable, and it continues to feel uncontrollable. In addition to those external experiences of that lack of space, what I think is more debilitating for many people recovering from trauma is the lack of internal space, where my post-traumatic stress symptoms are really just a reflection of this lack of safety, predictability, and control in my own body and mind. I continue to have these intrusive thoughts and images about the event, right? When I don't want to, all of a sudden I think about it, right? I have the image of what's happening. I have the physical sensation of it, right? I have these intrusive experiences reminding me of what happened. My mind is just uncontrollable. It happens without any predictability. I'm just driving along, doc, and then all of a sudden I started, having these symptoms. For many people, the physical symptoms of post-traumatic stress are kind of the most debilitating, right? Where you have that psychophysiological reaction when you do have the reminders of the trauma, so your heart starts pounding, right, and you start sweating, and you just feel physically not so great. Many of the veterans that I've worked with and other people who are recovering from trauma, anger might be very alive and might be a very significant symptom. And that also can feel very unsafe and unpredictable and uncontrollable. And people, right, hey doc, my kid walked into the room and I just started yelling at him for no reason. Right, so now not only am I dealing with all the symptoms, but now I'm dealing with more guilt because the symptoms I have are affecting the people around me. And so I want to protect the people around me because, and again, a stereotype, but that's sort of what veterans do, right? They're there to protect. And one of the reasons that isolation and avoidance is such a big part of post-traumatic stress for many veterans is because they don't want to hurt anybody else. And they don't want to be triggered, and the world's just unsafe, unpredictable, and uncontrollable. So their avoidance tends to be in that symptom cluster. And so traumatic events are marked by a lack of space internally and externally. Post-traumatic stress symptoms are marked by a lack of space internally and externally. And as yoga teachers, our job is simply to hold the space, to create the space and hold the space and share the practices. We know that the practices create internal space. If I invite you all to take a deep inhale, I can predict with 100% accuracy what's going to happen next. I'm going to exhale. And if I take a deep breath, I can start to predict what's going to happen in my own body. And then maybe I'll take another inhale. And maybe this time I'll lengthen my exhale a little bit. Maybe I'll slow down my exhale. Now I'm developing control over my own body, over my own thoughts. So I'm developing that internal sense of safety, predictability, and control. And that's what the practices do. But our job as yoga instructors, right, is to know these practices and share these practices, but it's also to create the conditions where these practices can land with our students.
Following the training for yoga teachers, a group of female veterans gathered at the Feathered Pipe Ranch for a multi-day retreat. The retreat was designed to be a healing experience for female veterans that have suffered from PTSD.
My name is Priscilla Neff, and we are at the Feathered Pipe Ranch in Helena, Montana, and we're going through a yoga retreat through the Veterans Yoga Project, which I'm super grateful to be a part of.
Hi, my name is Heather McDonald, and I'm a native Montanan. I live just south of Missoula in a town called Lolo, and I was in the U.S. Navy way back in the 90s. Went out of high school, joined the Navy, and I was in for 4 years, and then I left. So, and then I became a chef.
This is Chiwi, my service animal. My name is Leo Herod, also Leona. I go by both. I'm a transgender human being. I was in the United States Air Force back in the 70s, late 70s, early 80s as a firefighter, and a woman at the time. Now I'm transitioning, but I consider myself gender fluid, so I'm kind of in between the realms of male, female, which is really important to me. You know, it's my life. And it's been a difficult life because of it, you know, due to the fact that our society doesn't really validate differences. And when I went in the Air Force, I was a firefighter, so you know, it was a very interesting job, being the only woman in most of the places that I was stationed at, and I had to deal with some very difficult situations. Not only pressure from the men's wives because we all slept in the fire station together, but also just pressure from the guys because there was a lot of judgment. Didn't think I could do my job, even though I did above and beyond and got commendation medals, and all of my grading was always top of the line grading. So it just really took a toll on me.
Women being in the military, again, it's traditionally a male-dominated place, and so as women navigating that, sometimes I'm speaking really generally, but sometimes we find ourselves being overly masculine just to do the job that we've signed up to do. So yeah, those are all interesting things that then we come back and we're like, oh wow, now I need to come back and reconnect with my feminine. And so that, I mean, that's another great thing about this space and being here with other women vets, because we can support each other in reconnecting to those places that maybe we've gotten away from in our experience in the military. So.
You know, when I went in the military, you know, there were two options as a woman in the military. It was either you're the ditzy woman that the guys kind of, you know, brought under your wing and took care of you and, you know, whatever, or you were the one that did above and beyond, and I chose to do above and beyond. And I was really good at it. It was, you know, firefighting was not a problem. I could drag anything. I could, you know, climb up ladders. I could do it all, and I did it better than anybody in my group. But that was the problem, was that the pressure was that I had to do better. I had to be better so I would be accepted, but I was never ever accepted into the men's, you know, group. And so, you know, what I'm healing myself from is the sexual harassment that happened to me while I was in the military. I mean, in a fire department, you know, there was no control. There were no rules.
So many of the things that women veterans share, or at least that we hear about women veterans experiencing, are, you know, PTSD, like male veterans, but maybe different. You know, whether it's because they're women experiencing it, or because of the way that they're treated and then the way that PTSD looks, or MST, military sexual trauma, is something that many people have an experience with. some of them have experience with infertility or the loss of children, and processing that. And then there's always things in an institution like the military that is traditionally male-dominated. Sexism. Whether I didn't realize it when I was in, that was such a thing. I grew up with 5 brothers, and so when I was young and in my early 20s, it wasn't something that I noted, but afterward in the processing of my experiences, it was something that I began to see very clearly was present and wasn't okay, and wished that I could go back and be able to speak up and say that wasn't okay. And I mean, racism is something, and that's in general, that's not just for women veterans, but that's something that we see. Maybe I would like to think to a lesser degree than in the larger society, because of how cohesive the military is and because of the camaraderie piece that we share that transcends a lot of those things.
But doing it here at the retreat, I am just amazed at everybody's stories, their individual stories. And even though they're individual, everybody has the same problems, and that's a nice community, like, oh, I'm not the only one that feels that way, or oh, I'm not the only one that's been holding back all these feelings and anger and regret, and that's something that we were taught in the military to suppress. And I think also in society, women are told to suppress this stuff. Don't be ladylike and be this and be that, and that's not who, if that's not who you are, then don't be that person, what everybody thinks you should be the person that you are. And this, being with these other women, I think it's kind of, we're getting to know that we need to be who we are inside and not what other people expect us to be.
This is just a little extension of healing myself in a different way, stretching the body, learning about the circulation in the body, breathing, things like that. I've just learned it's very helpful for me. It's always been helpful for me to move the body, but I was taught kind of to just push a little too hard and a little too much, and so I just continued to re-injure my body through sports activities because I was in competition with myself. And so last year was pretty rough. I really had a hard time. I lost like a lot of weight and went really downhill. And so last 4 or 5 months, I've been doing the yoga and eating more and picking myself back up and doing therapy. And so these are just all wonderful tools, at my disposal to be able to continue to heal myself. And so, yeah, it's really exciting to be here. There's a big group of women from all over the United States. It's just really, enjoying it, and all the great information that each person has about how they heal themselves. I learned from that. And so, yeah, this is just a total win-win situation.
There's this idea that yoga is these movements, and stretching and poses and getting strong and stuff. But in that practice, I'm finding that it's a different way to connect with not just my body, but my emotions and my triggers. So if I move into a certain pose and there's something that hurts, which may be part of my physical disabilities, or that may be linked to the emotional things that are held in my body. And so yoga is the opportunity, in my experience, to see that pain for what it is and respond to it with love. which isn't necessarily so intuitive. But
yoga is a lot of people think, oh, I'm going to be better than anybody else, but yoga is, you're competing with yourself and pushing yourself as far as you can go, finding your limits, dealing with those limits and saying, okay, this is as far as I can go today, and that's okay, and being okay with it. I think that's, being okay that you might be flawed or you might have things to work on, and yoga just kind of points that out in a gentle way. To let you work on things on yourself and not have anybody saying this is what you should do, you should bend further this way or work on this. It's something you need to work on, and in a calming, healthy, loving way.
So I don't have to look at PTSD as something, that's a negative thing. I can look at it as something positive, because through my getting PTSD, I have been able to develop tools to heal myself and help myself. And so it can be a positive thing, and it can be through any kind of discomfort in the body or dis-ease. It's an arrow that points to a necessity in the body of what? Healing. PTSD, okay, I got triggers, so how do I heal those triggers? Okay, when it's happening, now I know that I'm aware of being in present time, which is another yoga and meditation practice. Okay, I can go, okay, find present time, because when I pop into something that happened to me in the past that was traumatic, today it feels like I'm back then there. So then I can use these tools to come into present time, get some oxygen in that brain, because there ain't any in there now. Have you had some water? Have you eaten? These basic things that we learn as children. But now with this trauma, it's like, no, I have got to be like a little child again and continue to focus on me going, okay, do I put my eye drops in? Did I take a shower today? Do I look more or less, okay and stuff? These kinds of things, to focus on just me, healing me now. Or else I'm really not going to be able to provide, the gifts that I have to share. And I want to be able to share these gifts, and I'm excited about them. I'm excited about my life. I'm excited about what I've done, and yeah, how can I give back now? How can I share with others?
So I've been kind of in my own journey finding ways to heal and sort of deal with the things that I've carried with me from my military experience. Mentally and physically, and yoga is something that just recently I've been finding is a really valuable tool, and I've only begun to scratch the surface of what that could look like for me and my experience and my healing. My background since the military has been, I do massage therapy, and I have experience in other body works, Tai Chi, and other modalities. So yoga is sort of my next step. And then I think especially as a veteran, in my experience anyway, to do the healing and to choose to face the things that I'm carrying and process them and turn them into something positive. And so then being in a space with other veterans, especially that it's all women, we're all women veterans, is really special. We have specific shared experiences, many of us, and a different way of perceiving, like a different perception of the world and of our experience and of the military in general. And so to be able to share those things in a safe space and in a healing space and support each other in moving forward is really special.
And even though it's a personal journey, having other people around you, it's an energy that is comforting. And I'm a loner. I like to be by myself a lot, and that's why I didn't do yoga for a while, because I wasn't in a class, or I didn't find a class that didn't seem like comfortable to me. But I'm slowly getting back into it with other veterans, and it's just kind of an understanding, because we've all been through something together as in the military, and it's just that camaraderie that you get this feeling like, yeah, I can trust these people, and I can share what's bothering me, because they've also have the same feelings. And so I think that's the main point, is to don't feel like you should do this alone.
And so, coming here and learning yoga is helping me to breathe, is helping me to get in touch more with my body, because I was taught not to be in touch with my body at all. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know how it worked. I could care less. And it was only because of the, cultural programming not to go within, not to learn about oneself and to find one's own truth within. And so, with yoga as well and meditation, that's an opportunity for me to go within and to find the hurt places, to find the trauma places, and to clear those out of my space so that I can decide how I want to live my life today. And for me, I want to live my life in joy, happiness. I don't want to be I'm not a victim anymore. I am a survivor, and I don't want to be a survivor anymore. I want to thrive. And this is my goal in life, is to thrive as a woman and a trans human being on the planet.
I think that the perspective that women veterans have, being women, first off, and everything that entails throughout history, and then being women who have volunteered to serve in a military capacity, and then come out of that experience with whatever we carry from it, we have a different perspective that we can share, I think, that can create healing in other ways, or even just if it just brings awareness in other ways, or if it just inspires people. I mean, I'm inspired knowing other women veterans. I mean, that's badass, and to watch the strength that it takes. I mean, it takes strength to be in the military as a woman, a lot of strength in a lot of different ways. And then to come out of that experience and then heal takes so much more strength. I mean, it's taken a lot of strength for a lot of the women here just to be here, just to choose the healing, or just the opportunity to heal.
For more information about the Veterans Yoga Project, future trainings, and/or retreats, check out veteransproject.org.
Monkey. Hi. Oh, look at how pretty you are. Yes, my little monkey kisses. Kisses.